So today we are going to talk about 8 dog nutrition myths that are circulating, that have always circulated, and I want to dispel and I want to boost in this video. So the first thing to understand is that multinationals do not care about you and they do not care about me. All they care about is zeros in their bank account. So every time anybody says something from high up, all they are trying to do is make money. So, myth number one in dog food is that this food has too much protein. Now, whenever someone says that a food has too much protein or is too rich for a dog, what they are trying to say, or what they are trying to get you to believe, is that the dog will need more carbohydrates. Now, that is a very good excuse for manufacturers to put rubbish ingredients in dogs' food. Now, if you biologically assess a dog, they are meat and bone eaters. If a dog were to be left on its own devices, to its own devices, in the wild, they would be eating and catching small prey, and they would eat the whole rabbit or the whole hare. And that would include the bones, and that would include the fur, and that would include everything a small mammal is made out of. Now, if you left a dog, or if you gave your dog a choice between rice or white potato or tapioca or any sort of starch and a meat, they will definitely choose the meat over the carbohydrate. So the myth number one is that the meat content of any particular food is too rich or is too high. Myth number two, which ties into myth number one, is that this food is too rich, and last time my dog ate this food or this particular protein, my dog was poorly. Let's say a dog is used to eating chicken or used to eating salmon, which are easily digestible meat sources, and then you give the dog lamb or you give the dog venison, for example. Those meats are a lot richer and a lot more nutrient dense than your chicken and your turkey. But that does not mean they are less valuable or they are of less quality, and that's why your dog is having runny stools, for example. That just could mean that your dog has a particular intolerance or allergy to that particular protein. So, rotational feeding, whereby you choose different proteins and you give your dog different proteins, is actually beneficial to your dog's health. Just like you would not eat just chicken forever, your dog should not just eat one single protein forever. A variety is the key. Now, the third one is that working dogs need working dog food. Now, this has to be one of the biggest secrets of the pet food industry. There is no such thing as a working dog food. There is a thing about VAT and VAT exemptions. Now, let me explain that. Every time you buy working dog food, whether it's raw, whether it's kibble, whatever that might be, you are not paying VAT, because food in the UK that is designed to be sold to working dogs is VAT exempt. So that is the only difference with working dog food. If you have a working dog, and many dog food manufacturers do this, do not read the label that says working dog food. Read the ingredients. The ingredients will reveal whether that is a good or a bad food. Now, a lot of working dog food manufacturers will say that the food is tailored, is manufactured specifically for working dogs. But that could not be further from the truth. These manufacturers will put heaps of rice, heaps of tapioca, heaps of potato, and heaps of low quality ingredients that will be detrimental to your dog's health. So anytime you buy working dog food, turn the bag of food over and check the ingredients. It is likely that that working dog food is not of very good quality and you should change it. The next myth centers around fat, that a low fat diet is beneficial to a dog with diabetes or pancreatitis. Now, we do have to make the distinction, and it is a very important distinction, between acute pancreatitis or acute diabetes and pancreatitis, which is ongoing and long term. If your dog has acute diabetes or acute pancreatitis, then yes, a low fat diet is almost imperative for your dog's health. Now, whenever we are trying to manage insulin and whenever we are trying to manage pancreatitis, we need to address the role of carbohydrates. The role of carbohydrates is extremely important in both diabetes and pancreatitis. Why do I say that? Carbohydrates convert into sugar, into glucose. The pancreas and the kidneys will secrete certain enzymes that will regulate those blood sugar levels and that glucose, and they will push that glucose into the fat storage system. Now, whenever you feed your dog too many carbohydrates, those carbohydrates will convert into sugar, and that sugar will create a rush, will spike insulin levels. Whenever the vet recommends food for pancreatitis or diabetes, make sure you understand that that bag of food contains a very high amount of carbohydrates, and that bag is not beneficial to your dog's health because of the amount of carbohydrates that bag contains. So what should you do? You should seek a food which is low in carbohydrates. Rice, wheat, barley, corn, white potato, those are high glycemic carbohydrates that will spike insulin levels. We want to choose a food that is low in carbohydrates, but either uses oats or sweet potato, which are low glycemic carbohydrates, and especially high meat content and moderate fat. You don't want to go for something which is very low fat, because your dog is biologically designed to break down meat and fat, protein and fat, protease and lipase, but they lack the amylase, which is the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates. So anytime someone recommends a low fat diet, you must make sure they are not replacing the fat content for high glycemic carbohydrates, aka sugar in the bloodstream. Another interesting topic is that grain-free food is always better than grain. Now, let's not beat around the bush. Feeding a dog any grain is not really beneficial to the dog's health. Why? Well, they are not biologically designed to attack a field of wheat, for example. If you look at how their canines and how their mouth is structured, they are meat eaters, they are carnivores. They are selective carnivores, but they are still carnivores. So whenever you see a bag of food with 50% rice, 60% wheat and corn, that is definitely not the best for your dog's health. However, manufacturers have become really savvy, and they have substituted rice for pea starch, tapioca, or white potato. So they will say, we have a food which is grain free and it's really good for your dog. However, they will fill it with a lot of nasty fillers, such as white potato, tapioca, or potato starch. And those aren't good ingredients. So whenever you see the grain-free food, that doesn't necessarily mean that food is a lot better or better than a food which contains grains. It always has to do with how many carbohydrates your dog is consuming. And the last one for this short video would be that to lose weight, you have to buy a dietetic food. That is the biggest pile of nonsense we see day in and day out. Anytime a manufacturer says this food is dietetic and is designed to make your dog lose weight, we see the same thing come up time and time again. And this is an excess carbohydrate kibble or excess carbohydrates in their dog's diet, which are detrimental to the dog's health. If you eat pasta 5 times a day, pasta might be low fat, but you are still going to put weight on. Why? Because you're feeding yourself too much sugar. Carbohydrates convert into sugar. Sugar is what causes the problem. So if your dog is trying to lose weight, you need to check for a biologically appropriate diet and a biologically appropriate food. This means high meat content and carbohydrate limited, and you need to restrain calories. Check the treats you're giving the dog, and whenever you turn those treats over, if they see cereals, if they say sugar, if they say things that you do not recognize, do not feed them to the dog, because that will be detrimental to the dog's diabetes or to the dog's obesity. So those would be some of the things that we don't like to see when we talk about the pet food industry and what we see in the pet food industry. Now, we only sell good food. We only sell food that is very good for your dog or cat. So if you are interested, you should visit thepetquarter.co.uk. We have wonderful resources. We have a nutrition blog and we have a lot of content around dogs' health. And we could choose to sell all sorts of brands and all sorts of things, but we are very picky because we do not want to profit from foods that are detrimental to your dog's health. We will only sell things that are good for you. If you have any comments, please drop them below, and I will see you in the next one.